Hello and welcome to India Career Center, the one-stop podcast for students, professionals, parents, and guardians. In every episode, we will try to deal with a current topic that needs expert advice related to career guidance, and career mentoring. Please welcome your host, Dr. S.B. Mishra, to the show, and happy listening.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the another episode of India Career Center. We have guests today from Canada, Edmonton. Welcome, Anindya, for joining us from Canada. I know it is late night for you. Thank you for being with us and sharing your experience. As I would like to take this conversation forward, I think we will try to cover the episode in two halves. One half would be to understand more about your particular professional field, which is market research, and also the layer of Canada and your experience in Canada with market research. And the second half, we will try to cover more about in detail about your life in Canada and what exactly the aspiring people from India, whether it is students or young people who are currently professionals working in India, want to explore career options in Canada. So, welcome, Anindya.
Sure. Well, thank you for having me. Yeah, it is Saturday night, so I'll try to keep the energy levels as much as I can because anyone listening to this, I would love them to take at least something out of value or of interest to them. So how would you want this to go?
So what I would like to start with is, if you like to start with your early life in India quickly and then how you transitioned into Dubai and then on to Canada. I think that would be very fascinating for young listener to really know about your journey, your personal journey.
Okay. Word of caution for any young listeners, most of my journey has not been planned. They have not happened by design. They just happened. But I have been, I guess, at the core of it, it's all about, I was always open to try new things. Now, what that new thing will become, I did not know. And I'm still doing that in some ways. So I come from Chandan Nagar, which is, or in Bengali, as they say, is a Chandan Nagar, which is an hour's train ride from Calcutta. My schooling was in Chandan Nagar. Then I studied. My college was in Kolkata, and then from Kolkata, I don't know why, but I happened to do my MBA in Pondicherry, which is where I met you and lots of other good people. 2 years in Pondicherry. Then I think the first job I had was with a packaging company selling industrial packaging products. So that took me to different interiors of Tamil Nadu and Kerala, and it was very interesting just to be in those places, which I never thought I would go. Anyway, a couple of years with that, and then I shifted to, again, my interest in market research stemmed from, I happened to have some roommates who were in market research, and that's probably where I got drawn into it. Started in research in, I don't know, maybe back in 2003 or 4. 3 years in India, out of Bangalore, and then another 3 years in Dubai. Then from Dubai, I got, and between India and Dubai, my entire work was with private sector. So how to sell a two-wheeler, what kind of advertisement works for shampoo, what people would like to eat during Ramadan, but from a very commercial point of view. And I had a lot of international exposure working in Dubai. From Dubai, I got transferred to Toronto, which was, I think, in 2009 with the same organization. Then from there, certain things happened, and I shifted from Toronto to Western Canada, which is in Edmonton. Now, because you referred an introduction to Toronto in your earlier episode discussion, if you think of research, commercial or corporate market research, typical market research hub in Canada is actually out of Toronto. Because all the in Canada they call it CPG. In India it's FMCG. Like all the CPGs, FMCG, banks, software, like all the marketing headquarters are based out of Toronto. Whereas out of that, what happens in Western Canada or other parts of Canada are mostly distribution and sales channel. And typically the market research is associated close to the headquarters. Like the industries are not well or evenly distributed in Canada like in India. Even in India, like most of the corporate houses would be out of Mumbai or Delhi. Whereas in Eastern India, there will be very few corporate houses. There will be mostly distribution hubs. So anyway, I digress. So essentially what I was trying to say is when I shifted to Edmonton, since the last, which was I think 2009 or 10, since then, 70% of my work has been with public sector when I was working for an agency, which is Leisure. And the last 4.5 years, I've been doing research and customer experience work within the government. So it's been although unplanned, but it's been an interesting journey in many ways. And I have had to change my entire way of thinking. Even something as little as before I started working for the public sector, I never thought I have to write a report in a Word document. But if you don't make a 30-page report in the Word document, it is not seen as a good enough report. So PowerPoint presentations will not work if you're working for the government sector. So there's a lot of changing directions, pivoting in different ways. So that in a nutshell is my journey for the last 25 or 20 years or so. Yeah.
Interesting. So just to deep dive a little bit about your current role with the government agency as a market researcher. This is refreshingly different from India. In India, you would not see any government department engaging in any kind of market research. At least I have not come across any government department having a market research wing, a dedicated employed market research wing working to understand what is the need of people. Whereas in Canada, you are working with the city of Edmonton for that specific purpose. So can you give little more insight into what exactly you do in this current role and why it is so important for the city of Edmonton to have a team of people working on the market research, especially with respect to the customer experience? Share your insight on this.
Yeah, so I'll start with the why it is important to the city. So I think this is more like, at least I can talk more about the history of the city or the organization that I work with. I cannot say fully about other government institutions. It's a more recent phenomena, I would say last 8 to 10 years, where slowly the government officials realize that, okay, what kind of services does the government offer? It offers transit services. It offers waste management services. It's not that they have competition in this. Like transit service, there is no private bus here. Everything is government bus. Or waste management, nobody else is collecting your waste. It's the government who is doing that. Then why do you want to do market research? Simple, right? There's no competition. But the idea behind that is, if you don't understand what the people need and how do you deliver the service so that it actually meets their needs, then you're putting a lot of money and effort without delivering value to the people, and then things don't work. There's a lot of complaints, and you have to come back and redo things again. So that's I can go hours and hours on this, but that is at the core of it. Again, everything is driven by that need of providing something which is efficient and effective. And it is like, if you think of the triad of desirable to the consumers, feasible for the business, and also viable in terms of financials. So if you want to put these three elements together, then you have to first understand what the customers need and how do you deliver them to make sure that it happens well. So although we are not competing, but we still have to do it in a way which is efficient and effective. And the only way to do it is to actually understand what customers need. So if you are spending $10, you can provide a much better value out of this $10 by knowing what they need, rather than spending $10, nothing is working and going and redoing again. So that is at the core. And also, why did this come up is, at a municipal level in Canada and in most of the North American democracies, actually, like, people are highly engaged with their municipal governments. They may not be so engaged in the provincial governments or the federal governments, but the municipal governments, they are very engaged, because that what the municipal governments do has an impact on their day-to-day lives. Mm-hmm. You're not talking about foreign policy. You're talking about whether tomorrow, if you're going to work, the bus system will work or not, or the parks that you want to go take your kids to, whether the parks are in a condition where then it is safe for you to go. This is all under the municipal government's jurisdiction. So they're very engaged in that. So it's a combination of those factors. And the governments have realized that if you work with the people, then it's also way easier to deliver the services, to change the systems, because then you are educating people to how to use the system. You have to spend less time in addressing complaints, and so on and so forth. So these are the why. And what we do, I think it's connected to the why. What we do is just understanding what people need and how can we deliver what they need within the constraints of the resources and the capabilities that we have. In terms of specific structure, like I said, I don't know about all organizations across Canada, but in the organization I work for, there is a specific market research unit, which I was earlier a part of. I'm not anymore. So there is a team of 6 or 7 people there. Then there is a unit called public engagement, which is another, which is allied but slightly different. But again, they do similar kind of work. And then there are service experience team. There are 6 or 7 service experience team, one of which I lead. So this is the entire scope of people that they are there. In different orders of government, the teams will be structured differently, but they will be doing, ultimately they'll be delivering the same thing. Like, for example, our neighboring city, Calgary, has a slightly different one. City of Vancouver has a slightly different structure, but all of them will have some form or the other of this kind of functions. In some places, the policymakers, the project planners will, they may not have a dedicated unit within the organization, but some of the smaller municipalities, what they will do is they will still need to do these activities, but they will outsource them completely.
On contracts?
And yeah, because they want, the scale of what they do doesn't justify having dedicated resources. So they would be using outside. So
that's very, the what. Yeah. So does it mean that the work you do also gets as input for the policy making at a bigger level? For example, in India, if you talk about the biggest organization in India is Niti Aayog. Okay. So the earlier name was something different, but now it is called Niti Aayog, which is basically the government agency which is into policy making. And so that's at a national level. So obviously in Canada, as well as at a federal level, there'll be some agency which will be there.
Yeah.
So all the market research, I mean, the customer experience professionals or organizations, at the city level obviously have linkage to the provincial level and then on to the national level. Is that correct in my understanding?
Not really. But so when you talk about policy level, so the kind of work that I do will actually inform policy,
Yeah.
but it will inform policy at the city level. So there are things which which is under the city's jurisdictions. There are things which are under the provincial jurisdiction. There are things which are under federal jurisdiction. So just to give you some examples. So today, if we have to change the roads in the city, that is under the municipal jurisdiction. So if you are going to change a policy or enforcement bylaw, a parking ban, something around the parking ban or where people smoke or not, that is under the city's jurisdiction. So if you're changing a policy around that, the research that will be required is something that my earlier team would do, or I will do to some extent. Healthcare is a provincial jurisdiction.
Mm-hmm.
So if government is changing something around the healthcare system, then provincial government will do the research. And I have done them earlier as a consultant, because then I used to do research for the provincial government also as an external consultant. So they will do that. Now, things like vaccine mandates, or whether there should be a ban on people who are not vaccinated to come into the country. Vaccine mandates are still provincial, but whether there could be a ban on people coming into the country or not, that is a federal jurisdiction. Or the policy on temporary foreign workers, that will be a federal jurisdiction. So those, again, market research or public, we won't typically use the word market research. In all this, I said, we don't usually word the market research. It's mostly called public opinion research because it's not the market we are trying to influence.
Mm-hmm.
So they will have the public opinion research wings to feed into that policy. So definitely there will be similar, whether it is delivering a service, because when you think of the delivering the service, before that, the service will be delivered according to a policy. Like you gave the example of Niti Aayog. Niti Aayog has a policy, and according to that, the schemes are developed. So take a step back. Even while doing the policy, we have to do that research.
Okay, interesting. So the public opinion research, what you mentioned, is a huge opportunity going forward. I mean, it is already there. You're saying about 8 to 10 years, it's there. So is it a growing field for young people to look at as a career option?
I wouldn't say it's, it is a growing field, yes, but I don't see people need to look at it separately as a public opinion research as a field. It's the same principles of doing market research. So if you know that, you should be able to do this as well. I did the same. I know a lot of people who are doing similar. Like it's very fascinating because the organization I work with right now in my earlier team, where out of the 4 senior researchers, 2 have actually migrated from India at different stages of their lives. Mm-hmm. One came in as a student, and then she did something else, then she joined the research team. Another person was doing research in India, then he was also in private sector, transferred here. So my suggestion would be for younger people is keep your eye open for this field also. And you don't have to prepare separately for this. Mm-hmm. If you know your research, if you know how to do market research, if you know how to do what people want, you should be able to excel here also and keep an eye for it.
Okay. So that's very interesting. So now coming over to your, specific decision for moving from, I mean, Toronto continues to be the number one destination from India, at least. I mean, people look at Toronto as kind of extension of a lot of India there. And after working in Toronto for some time, your switch or your movement to the next city, which is Edmonton, how was that, and what really influenced Was it with respect to a professional requirement, or what exactly drove that decision for you?
Like I said, when I first came into Toronto, after a few months, things were not really working out. And I was looking for different opportunities. And at that point of time, it was, if I think of when I came to Toronto, the phrase that I like to use is I was in the right place at the wrong time. Because I think 2008-9 is when I came in, and that's when there was a big crash happened. Markets across the world crashed.
Financial crash, yeah.
Financial crash and everything, which influenced all the markets. Like, doesn't matter which industry you're in. So things were not working out. I needed to find another opportunity, and one of the big barriers in Canada, at least 10 years back, was if you don't have a North American education and or North American experience, then it will take you some time to find your foot. And I didn't have enough at that point of time. So while Toronto is the hub, you get in Toronto market, in my field itself, there will be 10 new jobs coming every month. Whereas in Edmonton, there will be one job in 3 months. But while the availability of positions is low, the supply of skilled people is also low in Edmonton. So that's where things worked out in Edmonton easier. And I made a move here. And then the other factor that played in, it was not the initial decision, but then slowly when things I started settling down and started establishing myself here, cost of living is a big factor. The housing prices in Toronto are at the minimum 3 times more than where I am for a similar location. Like if I have to get a similar dwelling, what I have here in a similar location with similar closeness to the city center in Toronto, I'll have to pay at least 3.5 to 4 times than what I'm paying here for housing. Whereas the salaries at the most 5% more in Toronto. So that became more and more I settled here. That became an exit barrier. Like although there is the diversity of opportunities that Toronto will offer, Edmonton will never offer that, or it will have to go a long way to go there. But the quality of life is much better. So did I answer your question?
Yeah, I think it makes sense. Yes. So which means that the aspiring young people have to really balance in terms of their career aspiration with respect to the cost of living and opportunity. So it's a complete balance of all these factors. So it cannot be a simple black and white decision. Basically, that's that I get it. So now coming to the
on that, only one thing I would add there is if someone as a student is coming here, the best opportunity for that individual would be if they can find something around Toronto area, they get their studies done, develop the connection, get a few years, and then move to other parts of the country once they think of settling down.
Okay, so you would suggest that to start with study around the Toronto area because of the opportunities which is available?
Because of the opportunity and the industry connections that are there.
Okay.
That's okay. And when you are starting your life, your costs are low.
Yes.
The living costs are low. You are living by yourself, or you can share, and that way you are not thinking of saving at that point of time. You're more thinking of establishing yourself as a professional. So if you spend a few years, get the right connections, then get the lay of the land, and then you are able to find out which part of the country is the best for you. Because then it's not a trade-off. Like again, your trade-off or the importance you will put on various trade-off factors will vary by the life stage. I was coming more from my life stage, but someone is starting, then Toronto or around Toronto has a lot more opportunities and diversity than
Okay. Yeah.
Just to give you an example how it happens. So the MBA program in the University of Alberta, which is here where I live, is probably 1/3 in terms of cost than an MBA program at the Rotman School of Management, which is out of University of Toronto. Quality aside, a big reason for that is just the industry connections that that hub provides.
Okay. So, but then in terms of quality, both are similar, right? You would say.
I cannot say definitively that both are similar because I haven't gone through either the Rotman School or the U of A School of Business. But what I can say is part of the reason, even if Rotman is better in quality, it cannot be better 3 times in quality.
All right. I think that's a very logical way to put it.
Yeah. So it's the brand, it's the location, which is what they can, they can offer you a lot more of industry affiliations, training programs, etc., which are internships, which probably is limited choice in Edmonton. So that's those are the things. And it's a cycle, right? Your brand is stronger, so you also bring in a higher, better quality of students. So in a professional degree, you are as good as your cohort.
Yeah, that's right.
And Rotman, because of its brand, is able to attract a stronger cohort. So those factors come into play. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I get it. So you mentioned earlier that if somebody has the North American education system, it would be much easier to transition into a professional career in Canada. So what exactly you mean by that, and what exactly our young children from India should look at that? I mean, at what level of education should they think of moving into Canada?
So I'm probably a bit biased here because, and when I say I'm biased, because the first factor comes into my mind is cost. That's a big factor when I say level. So if I think of the kind of middle class background that I come from, or most of the, I know quite a few students here, or I've been in touch with them because my connection to this city was to the University of Alberta, where my wife was studying when I came in here first. So ideally, whether it's the US or the Canada, and I have not gone through the journey as a student, so you should take my story with that caveat. People shouldn't come here after at least doing their 4 years of education in India. Because simply because the scholarships, etc., will be much more. Your chances of getting a scholarship is much higher if you're coming here for a master's degree than an undergraduate degree. The undergraduate degree it's very hard for colleges to give scholarship because education budgets are freezing, and undergraduate it's where the masters come in, like lots of students, and that is where the colleges and universities make a lot of money. It's a source of revenue for them. So it's very hard to get merit scholarships at that. So that is one thing I would say that's come at that. The other reason I also think people should come at masters, because when you're doing your masters, you are also at a certain level of maturity, just in terms of your age. And it will be easier for you to manage the change in your life. There's a lot of changes, very different culture and so on. So that's another. And the third factor for me is, again, is related to cost. Because if you have studied 4 years in India and then you are coming here, masters are, those who are coming for doctorate studies, that is different. They have a long-term plan. But if you're coming for a professional master's degree, you are investing 2 years of your time, 2 to 2.5 years, based on how many courses you take. And after 2 years, you actually start working and getting some return on the money and time that you have invested in studying. Whereas you're coming for undergrad, you are doing 4 years. So it's just in terms of the number of years before you start getting some returns on your investment becomes longer. So as someone who has never not gone through the education system, this would be my suggestion.
Okay. Yeah, makes sense, because I think the undergraduate programs typically 3 to 4 years, most of it 4 years.
4
Obviously,
years.
from the cost point of view, they're obviously double the cost at least. And if somebody goes for the master's program, also additionally, what you can start doing is start working every week for 20 hours. I think that is allowed in most of the countries during your academic sessions. And during the breaks, you can actually work for longer time and you can work full time. So that's also one advantage, that you can actually start sustaining yourself the moment you come as a master's program. Is that right?
It's a very, very, like in Canada, the work permit is very open. But coming back to your point, yes, that, and the other factor that also plays in is if you are coming here for master's, seemingly you have done your undergrad in India, so you have certain skills, so you can actually do some kind of work which you won't be able to do if you're coming in an undergraduate, because you're just
right.
coming after your standard, right?
You're
not, your education qualification is also very minimal.
Right. Coming to the method of education over there. So if somebody had, let's say, completed his undergraduation in India and coming to do the masters, what difference one should be expecting?
The real answer is there will be a huge change. I don't know if I would have completed my masters if I were studying here with the amount of effort. Like, definitely not with the amount of effort that I put in. With all the effort that I would have to put in, even then it would have been very tough. So it is hard. It is a lot of hard work. So that's the first thing anyone thinking of a transition to North American education system. When I say North American, because I know it's very similar in the US as well, they should be aware of. It's a lot of hard work. It's not the images of people sitting in the green campus ground and having some tea, coffee, or whatever under the spring tree or fall colors. They look very nice, but on the other side of that is they're working till 2:00 to finish assignments, doing them in the morning, and then at 5 p.m. after the entire days of live work, they will go and work at retail in a petrol bunk or something so that they can pay their rents. So that's the first thing. It's a significant amount of hard work. The second thing is most people who go till the master's level here are actually very passionate about what they do, in terms like they really love the subject. So be very selective about the program that you are doing, because the only way you can sustain that kind of hard work is if you love your subjects. So if you're doing it just for, okay, let me just do any masters, which again, I'll be the first one to admit, I did. Most of the people I knew did in our generation. Then think twice.
Agreed. So, which means that higher education, especially the master's programs and beyond, are meant to be very serious efforts. And they should be only selected very specifically with a very clear career path in mind. And there has to be very high amount of commitment and passion towards that particular subject. Then it becomes much easier to undergo the hard work process. Yeah.
I mean, So, and it may have changed now, but at least in the years that when I grew up in India, we looked at most programs as, let's crack the entrance exam. If we can get into the class, no one fails. We'll get out. That's mostly, like, so much of our focus was joint entrance and medical entrance and the CAT and this and that what happens after that often took a backseat. But here, that's equally, if not more important, the process of the 2 or 3 years you will spend.
Okay. Now that somebody has actually gone through the master's program, he or she's done the program, and then what to expect from the life in Canada? I mean, in terms of, let's say, the living, the condition, the job. I know it is a very generic question, but from the point of view of somebody looking at from India to you who has spent about 10 years now in Canada, what are the top things which you can think of sharing?
Well, see, the thing is, someone who has spent 2 to 3 years as doing a master's and have that time to acclimatize themselves, by that time, they know what to expect. So they would have, been there, met their friends, gotten their network in place, know which city in Canada they would like to work in, or they want to go outside of Canada or whatever. So at that point of time, it would not be that much of a challenge in acclimatizing to the place. It's more when they're coming in, that is where they will find it the biggest struggle. So that's, I don't know if I answered your question, because I don't see someone facing a challenge of finding out about the place after they have finished their program, because that is the best way. If you were planning to immigrate, that's the best way to come in. Come in as a student with low liabilities, spend 2-3 years, understand the place, know the people, build your network, so that by the time you have completed your education, you're also set. In practical terms, some of the things you will get is, if you are studying in Canada for 3 years, or whatever number of years, 2 years or 3 years, you will get a 3 years open work permit, which is, I think, to the best of my knowledge, way more than what you will get in the US or in the UK. If you are slightly, many people come here at kind of not very early stage of their career, but maybe mid-20s or early 30s, or sometimes they are married or have a partner. In Canada, if you're coming here as a study permit, your partner will get a work visa by default. So again, that is something you will not get in the UK or US, as far as I know. So that's another thing a lot of people do. Like, if there is a couple working, then one of them will study or do MBA, and the other partner, because this individual is coming here as a study permit, both he or her and their respective partner will also get a work permit. So the other person works to support them, and so on. Again, so what to expect by the time they're completing their study? They can expect a work permit. They can expect a work permit for their partner. What to expect in terms of the specific line they have in terms of their career, it's very hard to say. It's like anywhere else. It's it totally depends on which degree or line they have pursued and so on. But there is a master's program, to the best of my knowledge, is still at a premium. Like it still gets a premium from the market. So I'm not aware of anyone who has completed their master's in their respective field and has not been able to get a decent job. And when I say decent job, I mean that a job which does some justice to the number of years they have put in doing education. So those are the things they can expect by the time.
So in terms of job opportunity, I was looking at some website, the Job Bank Canada. In that, obviously, the job requirement or job availability for healthcare industry, I think that's huge.
That's huge.
So there's a lot of data which is there. So apart from that, what are the other industry as per you, or what are the other professional lines which are quite good in terms of opportunity, if you have anything to share? Otherwise, of course, the Job Bank is a very, very elaborate website to check what's the opportunity available in Canada.
I won't be able to elaborate a lot. I think healthcare is definitely one. My guess is technology. Just not software, like things like data science, analytics is another one which is coming up in a big way. Those are the two top of my mind. I think there will be there. And when you say healthcare, it's just not doctors, to be very clear. Like here, nurses and paramedics are as important, if not more, as doctors. And that is why the healthcare system, there are lots of challenges, humongous amount of challenges, the healthcare system here, but still, they at least realize not everything has to be done by a doctor. And so nurses are equally qualified. Another way of looking at it, if you want to see what kind of careers could work in coming trends or what are the things in demand, other way to do it is go to like Immigration Canada's website, and they will have certain professions where they will allow express entry. Like if you are in those professions, then you can enter faster. So that can give you a clue of what are the professions that are in demand.
Right. I think we have covered quite a bit with respect to your current profession, as well as what to expect professionally from Canada in terms of both education as well as from the immigration point of view. Of course, we will like to deep dive into specific areas probably in another episode, which we can record at a later date. Maybe we can deep dive into market research, the field you are in, and that really sounded very fascinating with respect to the concept of customer experience. So we can actually do a deep dive into that. But would you like to give a very top end version of why customer experience is such a big or important profession which is shaping up now? And we can keep that for a longer discussion in our next episode.
Top end. It'll be very hard to give a top end because there are so many layers, because there traditional market research and customer experience are two fields which are very similar. And there is yes, customer experience is becoming bigger and bigger. That is very true, and I see that in my line. And I'm very fortunate that I have been in different points of my time. I have done both the traditional market research as well as customer experience. And in my current job, I look at both the things, which not everyone has that. So I'm very fortunate that way. Why it is becoming big? I think there are two things. One is nothing is a product. Everything is an experience. You're not selling an iPhone, you're selling the way for people to connect to each other. You're not selling Coke or whatever. It's still a service. Like people are coming to even if you're buying a headphone, Bose headphone, it's not a product, it's still an experience, how you feel wearing it. So that's where things are moving more and more. So it's very experience. It's a total experience rather than just the tangible product. Second is any product or anything can be copied more and more, but it's the experience space where the companies are trying to differentiate themselves. And I guess the third reason why this service experience, customer experience things are becoming more and more important is this philosophy tries to connect the various elements of the organization together, starting from sales to marketing to product development, etc. Whereas traditional market research is still tied to one discipline, like did the advertising work or not, or what kind of product combination will get you the most value. Whereas CX is an end-to-end journey. So these are, I think, some of the main things why this is big and it'll become bigger. But we often use the term called promise made and promise delivered. So the promise delivered space is the customer experience, whereas the promise made space is the brand
Product.
advertising product, that space. So they have to work hand in hand with each other to ultimately, make your business grow and keep customers back. So
Fascinating. I think, as I mentioned, this will really need a very deep dive into understanding this line, which we'll definitely do, so that our young aspiring children and young people can look at this as a potential, profession for their life. And the best part, I assume, is that you really cannot really define a particular education pathway to reach there. Am I right in this assessment?
yes, in fact, it's better if you don't have a particular education path because your chances of success are higher if you have done different things, because you're trying to understand human needs. So
very fascinating. Very fascinating. So I think, Anindya, I think it was fantastic and very, very lively discussion, and we went into different rabbit holes, if I can put it, to really understand about your life in Canada and your professional life, and what to expect with respect to the future for professions and young students, both from the point of view of taking up higher education or planning to immigrate. I think Canada continues to be a big opportunity, big important career destination for many Indians, and of course many other countries as well. It was nice talking to you and connecting with you to understand your journey. Thank you for investing your time with India Career Center, and we will definitely work with you and really see other specific topics in future, so that a lot of our young aspiring students and children can get those specific wisdom from your journey and make their professional careers much more rewarding and interesting and happy. I think that's what it is, that what you're doing or what you're going to do in your career for next 30 years or 40 years has to be very interesting. And you have been very, very fortunate in finding your niche interest area of market research. And I really hope that you can inspire a lot of young children from in India to take that as a profession. Right.
I have. I don't know if I can inspire people, but as long as people keep an open mind and work hard, something will work out. I've never seen someone who has worked hard and not gotten results over a period of time. It might be a temporary step back, but only one thing I would like to add. But thanks for having me. And if anything, if any value is there in this whole conversation, I'll be grateful. One thing I would like to add, specifically talking about Canada, is we haven't touched upon it at all. And I haven't lived in the UK or the US or Australia, so I am biased. But I think in terms of the people, there's one place I find the overall environment a lot more open to people from outside. And in general, people are nice and polite.
Very good.
And that is very important, I think, when you're coming to a new place. So
yeah, I got a similar insight when I was talking to Gaurav Arora sometime back. He lives in Toronto, and he gave a fantastic insight about the people and the culture. So that was very interesting. I will, of course, link that in our show note as well, that episode of conversation with Gaurav, who is a healthcare professional. And he gave little bit insight about healthcare as a career option. So I will link that as well in our show note. And with On India, of course, we will do a deep dive on market research. That's a huge area, and specifically the customer experience. I think those are two big areas which we will expand further in our next episode. So thank you, Anindo, for giving all your insight.
thank you.
And look forward to connecting with you again. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good night. Oh, good.
Hope you enjoyed this episode. We sincerely wish you could take something from our conversation today and be able to apply it to your life in a positive way. We value your feedback. This can help us improve our future episodes. So share your thoughts to serve you better. If you want us to focus on a topic which you think is of importance, let us know. We will share our expertise in future episodes. So, see you soon with a new topic and help you in your career journey.